Welcome everyone. In this lesson we're going to build a converter in Python. We are going to convert from horsepower to watts. One of the really cool things about building computer programs is you spend a little time up front and then you can use them to do math very quickly. Alright, so let's get started. I have put the preliminary information for this file up at the top. We have the name, horsepower converter version 1, name, the class, and today's date. So the first thing that we want to do is to ask the user to input information. So we're going to type in our little algorithm here, and step 1 is to ask the user for information, and that's going to be horsepower to watts, or vice versa, watts to horsepower. The second thing we want to do is get the number of, or the value that the person wants to convert. So and number 3 is actually do the conversion. And number 4 would be to show the results of the conversion. Alright, so part 1, print out a message to the user. So we'll say something like print, do you want to convert from horsepower to watts, or watts to horsepower? And I'll go ahead and put the prompt in here so the person knows where to input their answer. Alright, so then part 2 is where we need to get the input from the user. So we'll make a variable called answer and set it equal to input. We can use input because we're asking for a number rather than a string. So we'll say enter 1 for horsepower to watts and 2 for watts to horsepower. Alright, so now we need to use a conditional. If they choose 1, then we're going to convert from horsepower to watts, and if they choose 2, we're going to convert from watts to horsepower. So we'll say if answer is equal to 1, horses equals input, enter the number of horsepower, or let's just say enter the horsepower. And then we'll do the calculation. So we'll say watts is equal to horses times the conversion value, which is 745.69987. And then we'll print out the answer, and we'll say you entered so many horses and which equals so many watts. And since we're dealing with numbers, but we want to use them as a string, we'll go ahead and cast these two values here, horses and watts, as string objects rather than numbers. So to do that, we put str in front of our variables that are holding those values. And now we have a second condition. So if answer is equal to 2, and then we can say ask for the watts. So we'll say watts is equal to input, enter the watts, and I forgot an S up here. So then we'll say horses are equal to watts divided by 745.69987. And then we'll go ahead and print that value out. So we'll say print you entered a string watts which equals so many horses. All right. Let's go ahead and test what we have. So we'll go ahead and run it and save it. I'm just going to save this file right now to my desktop. And we're going to say horsepower converter one.py. And says I'll first test it by entering a 1 for horsepower, and I'll say 10 horses. And there we go. Now I might want to run it again. So I'll go to my previous file here and run it again to test the other conversion. So I'll enter a 2 this time, and I will enter, well, let's enter 7,456 watts. So 7. And we get a value of almost 10 horsepower because we didn't use the remainder. So that is the first stage of this program. Now let's say we want to have a third condition here where if the person doesn't enter 1 or 2, it reminds them to enter a 1 or 2. And it allows them to redo the program. So we'll deal with this issue in part 2. See you then. Bye.